Hello there, and welcome back to the next episode of Overcome Yourself, the podcast. As you know, my name is Nicole, and I'm so excited to be here today with Ronnie. Ronnie, please go ahead and take it away and tell us a little bit about you. I know you work with Joy. I know you've got a lot going on. So tell us a little bit about who you are and who you help.
Yeah, definitely. I love helping mid-career women, especially just to really reclaim joy that might be lost along the way. We are so easily rewarded for achieving and, looking for success in external ways. And often my clients are at a point where, yes, they've done this climbing of the ladder and they really just want to enjoy life and have energy and have joy in their relationships and even joy and purpose in their work. So a lot of the coaching focuses on how to lead. And when I say lead, I mean influence. How do you lead others? Even if you don't have a position that sounds like an executive title, you still are influencing other people. So how do you lead in a way that is holistically well? And also, how do you lead yourself so that um, have all the benefits that are out there in life, right? So that's sort of it in a nutshell.
Yeah, even if you're all alone, you're leading yourself. So you're leading
Yes,
somebody.
yes,
So
exactly.
can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, self-leadership is a key component. When you think about it, we end up being day to day in a default mode. We go through very habitual routines, and also our relationships fall into patterns. Our thoughts definitely fall into patterns, right? And that's the way our minds are wired. It helps us to survive, it helps us to conserve energy, all these things. But when you stop and say, what of my thoughts and my convictions really once served me, but don't serve me now. Maybe it's something that was handed to us societally or in our family messaging or even in the career path we're on. And at some point, it stops working, for our best benefit. And that's where I love to give people the chance to become really self aware. And with that self awareness comes the chance to make a conscious choice to view it differently and choose new ways of experiencing life that are more joyful, that are more fulfilling, that actually express who you are that in a way that maybe you haven't been able to up to that point in life.
That's beautiful. That's amazing. I love that. Um, you talk about joy a lot. Can you talk to us about joy? Like, what is joy? How do we find joy? Um, yeah, tell us.
Yeah, we hear very often, people say, I'm searching for happiness, wanting to find joy. And my core belief is that joy is our default state, it's there already. So it's not about finding joy or chasing it down. It's really about uncovering and moving out of the way the things that have blocked the experience of joy. So with every person, it's a different way of arriving at this understanding, I would say, because every one of us has these components, right? We have the spiritual component, the physical component that we're dealing with, whether we're feeling well physically or struggling physically. It can be emotional aspects. It can be relational challenges that are taking the forefront, career and financial and fulfillment. Those sort of things could be right, kind of the thing that take the most focus and energy at that any given moment in time. So looking at each person holistically as to what's going to get them moving in the right way, right direction. And I love this truth that when you change one significant thing, one significant area of change, it ripples into all these other parts of our life. Yeah. So maybe you make that pivot from a career that was soul sucking to one that's, wow, maybe I don't make the same amount of money, but I love what I do every day, or I love who I speak with every day now, or it aligns with my values now, where my old job really just wasn't engaging for me at some point. So making that one shift ripples into all these other areas. Then they can show up differently, maybe as a parent or, as someone in their community where they can now serve in a way that makes an impact beyond even their immediate circle. So that's the beauty of transformation, working with a coach where you can get beyond what you believe is possible. Because we get very limited very easily in thinking what's possible because we're in the day to day. We're in putting out fires day to day. And that's not truly living, more like surviving. Yeah.
Yes. Um, so much of what you said resonated with me. I was thinking about how in my book, I wrote about how joy, I like to define it more like Dr. Brene Brown defines hope, where it's not necessarily an emotion. It is a cognitive process. It is the basis from which everything else comes from, all the other thoughts, all the other emotions. And so one of my chapters, why I stopped trying to be happy. And it's not that I'm not happy, is that I stopped trying to find happiness and I
Yeah.
started living in joy. And so what do you think about that? Can you talk to me a little bit about the difference between happiness and
Yes.
joy?
Yeah, and I think your decision to say instead of seeking for something that's ahead or not quite there yet, that's, that's the fallacy, right? Instead, you said being joyful. So it's more the mindset of instead of what am I doing? Yeah, I have goals. Yeah, I have, tasks and responsibilities. I'm not denying that, but that's not the preeminent focus. Who am I being while I'm showing up at that work meeting? Who am I being as I'm sitting with my child on the way to their, ball game? Like, am I present? Am I really listening? Am I existing as someone who shows love and shows evolution and growth? Like all these things that are about being versus the outward action as
Hmm.
the priority, the achievement
Yeah, versus
oriented.
doing, right?
Yeah, yeah. So when you are aware of that, you create space for joy to shine through. It's almost like, take a clay vessel, you know, when it's broken, what's beautiful is that the light can shine through if that vessel is broken, maybe in some sort of symbolic way. It's in there. The joy is in there. So I think arriving at that point can take time or it can take a circumstance. And, when people are willing to see it and also like ready to see it and learn it, that's when it's going to be most powerful. And I think what you said was it takes effort to search for joy, search for happiness. It's exhausting, and it's maybe discouraging. But if you stop and allow it to just be like you said, joyful, be at peace, right? Then you're in a much more powerful state, much more powerful way of being compared to force and effort, because that runs out. And why is burnout such a common theme that we hear people talking about? Because we think falsely that if we just add one more thing to our plate, if we get just a little more efficient, then we're going to get there. It's the formula for burnout.
Yeah. Um, it goes back to what you were saying about that ripple effect. That's what I call dealing with a big domino, right? Because once you hit that big domino, all the other little dominoes have to fall into place. And for me, joy was one of those big dominoes because it affects everything else that you do, right? Like your perspective, it affects how you work, how you deal with your family, how you talk to yourself, how you maintain your house, how you take care of you. Like everything that you do is affected by that. um and the other thing you mentioned was that crack, and that's another thing that's in my book. I love how like we're on a very similar
Yeah.
vibe, but I was talking about overflow and how what's in you is what comes out of you, right? And it's only what you have an excess of that you can give from. So like if you're watching trashy TV and you're watching all these reality shows and everything's about gossip and like, oh, who's better, like who's prettier, who's this, who's that, well, that's what's going to come out of you. That's how you're going to deal with your kids. That's how you're going to deal with your house. That's going to deal with all of these things. I'm not saying like we, every now and then it's not, some of us, some people like to watch trashy TV just a little bit, and that's okay, right? But for the most part, what I mean is if that's what all we're filled with, then that's all that's going to come out of us. And so I had to make a very intentional shift to start reading about, well, joy, to start reading about having good habits, about the psychology of happiness and how do I find it, how do I not find it, business, all the things I learned about business. And now when I talk, right, when I was younger, I used to get in trouble for talking too much. But I would talk about the wrong things. The wrong
Mm,
things were overflowing out of me.
yes.
And then when I was able to change my perspective, operate from joy, focus on all these other things, well, guess what? That's what's in me. And that's all I want to talk about now. So, like, if you want to gossip, that's cool, but I'm going to revert the conversation back to what we're doing next week.
Yes, yes, definitely. And it sounds like you're you're tapping into the idea of in each of us there's this like core essence, there's this part of us that is true, unchanging. There is a model I love um to like, it's a model of therapy. It's called internal family systems. I don't know if you're familiar. Dick Schwartz developed it a few decades back, and it is powerful because one of the key pieces of his model is that within each of us, there's this, essence, this true self, like capital S self, that is unchanged by experience, trauma, where you're born, any of those things, and like you said, even just the messaging around you, right? Like all of the media and the shows and our options, right? We have so many options.
Yes.
Um, so this true self is kind of the core of who we are. And when we get to be sort of led by this true self versus the personality, this outward part that we present, the ego or the roles that we play. None of them are bad in and of themselves, right? But the part that's true and um, most effective for living a life with joy, with fulfillment, with prosperity, whatever is important to somebody, right? Is understanding being led by your true self. And just as an idea, as a concept to think of, is when you're about to enter something difficult, maybe like a really challenging conversation or giving a speech where you're, maybe, intimidated by the thing that your job is requiring of you at that time, something. Um, if you pause and really reflect on showing up as your true self, these characteristics are going to shine through. And the 8 traits that are sort of core to it, and it's not a complete list, but the 8 traits that seem to be universal in this model of the true self and how we show up is that we are calm when we're our true self, calm, courageous. We have clarity, we are compassionate, and not just compassionate towards others, but compassionate towards ourselves first. We're curious and we are connected. So connected on a greater scale, aware of the connectedness. And then creative. I think I listed 8. I'm not sure. But if I missed one, it's still a good list. And creative doesn't mean, hey, I make paintings every day. That could be that. But creative means I'm able to be innovative in my thinking and have solutions and show up positively in all my realms of life and bring something into existence that enhances the environment, the people around me, the world, So that might be the way of seeing creativity. So I put that out there because I think it's a really powerful way of viewing ourselves and how we can show up, in these situations that you're talking about.
Oh, that is amazing. That's very cool. So, hopefully those will be in the show notes. I'll make sure that we can, extract those that you said because they're dead on. I love how they all start with C.
Right?
So yes, okay. So I definitely have to go back and listen to it to write them down, but I love those. Now I want you to talk to me about another big part of my book,
Yeah.
like the foundation of everything that I do. I want your thoughts on gratitude.
Ooh, yeah. Gratitude is, I know social science research backs this, right? My background was psychology before doing my, years in career with leading teams and, sales and, directing things like that. And I always have used gratitude as a way of shifting, like shifting out of a place that feels, perhaps weak in some way or like just disempowered for that moment, right? I won't say it's weak, but maybe if I'm in, feeling sorry for myself mode or feeling frustrated about XYZ, shifting my focus to gratitude creates energy, creates possibility, excitement, momentum can happen. So I've always been able to practice and almost use it as a muscle that the more I flexed it, the more easily it appears, right? Even as I first wake up, first thing in the morning, my first statement in my mind is something about what I'm grateful for. It's a for me, it's a spiritual practice, and I give thanks as soon as I wake up. I'm not saying I do it 100 out of 100 days, but most days, more days than not, that's where my mind has been wired to do that as I wake up. That's been a discipline I've had over, decades, and it came from being in difficult times, like losing my dad at age 30. So that grief period, parenting three children wasn't easy. And so I definitely have a lot of compassion for especially moms who are juggling career and parent because I did that for a long time, being in a long-term marriage that wasn't a healthy marriage for many, many years of it, like how to navigate that and stay well and stay productive and lead your family still. So I would say, gratitude was fuel for me to be able to do the things that were not optional. I do see it that way. And it's, yeah, so I think it's integrated into how I view things almost as a default because I see it as fuel and as a way to create momentum out of a place that I don't want to stay.
Yes. I love that. I love all of it. I alluded to gratitude being like a muscle in my book. Um, I alluded to so much of what you said, so dead on. And we have to use it. Like you said, it's like a muscle.
Yep.
And if we haven't used that guy in a while, guess what? It might have atrophied. But the
Yep.
only way to get it working again is to start using it. And
Definitely.
so it is such yeah, it's so, so important. And I absolutely agree. Um, Let me know. I want to shift a little bit now, because we've touched on some really important topics, like some really like important. Like these are like the things,
Yeah.
the foundations, right? So can you talk to me a little bit about how the audience can stay in touch with you? And you might have mentioned that there was a gift. So we'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Definitely, definitely. I have a community that I, invite people to check out and see if they want to be a part of it. It's called Networking Naturally, and I formed it basically to solve a problem. The problem is in this, you know, this time of building my own coaching practice, leaving corporate life, I have found that I meet so many people who say they really just don't love networking. Like it's a hassle for them, or it makes them, it's just not fun. So I want to give people skills on how to be more effective at it because it helps your entire career, every piece of it. And so I formed this community called Networking Naturally. So that link is available to your audience. So I invite you come in. It's very uplifting, supportive, and there's skill building. Like I want people to walk away with actionable tools just by being there. So I do that. I have asynchronous learning there where they can do it when they're, before they head to work or do it at their lunch break, do it before they go to bed. There's learning there, but there's also community, live, dialogue and live calls that are scheduled ahead. So group coaching happens there. So that's a great way to stay in touch. And as far as a gift, I have this really new class that I'm so, so jazzed about. It's called Boundaries and Balance because everybody wants more balance, right? Especially work life balance, especially that. But one obstacle to work through is creating boundaries so that you can have that sense of balance. And here's a secret. You never really have true balance. What I call it really is more about like having harmony, work-life harmony. So can I be myself at work and myself at home and feel like what I'm doing in both areas is enough, right? Have that peace of mind. That's really kind of what in my mind, what we can um, envision as the ideal. But creating boundaries is key. And so once people learn some skill around how to do that in a healthy way, in a consistent way, without feeling guilty about setting these boundaries, then then you can become basically unshakable, unstoppable, right? That's one piece of the puzzle. So I have a free class coming very soon. It's called Boundaries and Balance. So it's a little master class, 20 minutes long, full of info and action that you can take right away. So I'll offer that to your listeners. Yeah.
Yay, thank you so much. And so the links for all of that are going to be available down in the show notes. Um, I love that so much. No, if I go into that story, we're going to take forever. So I'm not going to do
Part two,
that.
part two. Yes.
Yes. All right. So, Ronnie, this has been just absolutely amazing. Can you leave us with a final tip? Like, what is that big advice? Like, what gives your clients the biggest aha moment, that little gem?
Yeah. I would say right now, what I hear is helpful to many people that I'm working with is they don't feel like they have enough time to do what they need to do. And with that assumption in your mind, like there's not enough time, I'll never catch up, we tend to work faster, harder, and longer. When in fact, the true answer is to pause. The true answer is to slow down and pause and become very aware of where am I experiencing this sense of fear and what is the fear message. So the fear might be like, oh, I'm going to look like a failure or I'm going to let people down. And I don't want that, right? Everyone has their own little message that happens in this fear moment. And we have the ability to capture that thought, hear it, and acknowledge that that's only one way to look at it. You can replace that thought. So I work with people on how do you replace that thought with a new one that moves you forward with peace, with confidence, with solution mindset. So there's that moment to say where in my body do I feel that stress? Might be tight chest. It might be hot face. It might be my posture's hunched and I'm crouched over my desk. So notice where your body's telling you that you're having this stress reaction and pause. Give yourself a breath. There are specific breath work type of techniques, but for this purpose, pause and breathe. Let oxygen get to your brain and then give yourself that new message. The new message could sound like, I have enough time to do everything that matters, or I am enough regardless of what's happening outside of me. Whatever that message, write it down somewhere if you're that sort of a thinker, and build that muscle when you notice that tension, that fear, that stress, because now you're going to build this new pathway in your mind that's a positive, forward focused, self-loving message. And then you start to see the results from there, and you will get more done because you're not in reaction and survival mode. Now you're in more of a clear-minded, adaptable mode with this new mindset. So I give you that tool, and I know it works. It works 100% out of the time. It's very powerful. So
And to tie it back to what you said earlier, you mentioned when you wake up, your first thought, which I'm sure it's very intentional, right? Because it didn't just start off this way, but it's about gratitude. And I read once, I think it's the book The Soul of Money talks about how lack creeps up on us in different places. And one of them is what's the first thing that comes into your mind in the morning? If you're like, oh, I didn't get enough sleep, you're starting off in lack. Like it's not just about money, right? Like it's
yeah,
exactly what you're saying. Like, oh, I didn't get enough sleep. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough hours in the day. I don't have enough food. Like it's if that's all we focus on, it'll never be enough.
that's
So
right.
deciding when that is enough and then practicing what you preach, which is what exactly what you're saying is you wake up in the morning, you open your eyes, you're like, "Ah, I'm grateful for what, I don't know, whatever pops into your head. But
Yep.
training yourself to be able to do that. I love that so, so much. That's actionable and it's so powerful. It seems so easy. You're like, no, that's too simple. Because I did that. I was like, no, that's too easy. It's just too simple. Like it's just saying what you're grateful for. But it really is. It did change my life when I took it seriously. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Of course. And this has been an amazing episode of Overcome Yourself, the podcast. And we will catch you guys next time. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you
Bye.
for having me. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.